You're here because you're finally thinking about launching your SaaS, or maybe that idea that you had in the back of your head for a while, but you don't know all the pieces that go into building a SaaS. Hello, my name is Francisco.
Francisco, that's fun to say. Francisco.
I've been a developer for years, and I create videos hoping that they become resources for developers like you. By the way, make sure that you stick around until the end of the video, where I'm going to give you tips and things that you should know about when launching your SaaS. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to be talking about launching a web app, but there are a lot of similarities with a mobile application as well. For a mobile application, you will have to develop your mobile app, but you might have to support it with having a backend and adjacent services. So there are a lot of similarities between a mobile app and a web application, except for the UI component. Unfortunately, in this video, I'm going to assume that you already have an idea and you know the functionality that you need to implement and how to do that. And I'm going to share components that maybe you did not think about while you were busy designing or implementing your solution. With the experience that I have building personal projects and projects in my day-to-day job, this is a typical architecture that you might run into. You'll have a UI, a single page application. You'll have an API, and if you're going to be storing data, which most of the time you'll probably need to, depending on the solution that you're developing or the problem that you're trying to solve, you're gonna have to store data, so you'll need a database. And if your solution requires some type of cleanup job that needs to happen at a certain interval, or you need to schedule notifications to go out, whether they are via SMS or via email, you're gonna have to have services or jobs that run at a given interval, every hour, every 24 hours, or whatever might be suited for your application. So these are the pieces that I want to go into depth and talk a little bit more about, because it's not just having these pieces, but there are a few more pieces that you are going to need. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about one of the most important things when it comes to being able to actually put your app out in the market is hosting. Where are you going to host your application? There are multiple services out there that can host the UI to your application, but in my experience, I ran into issues when I wanted to scale or made something that was not offered within the services. For example, Heroku or Fly.io, I believe it's called, that I used before. You can very quickly get your UI application up and running, but when you need to build something, I guess a little bit more custom, or at least something that is not offered within their services, you kind of run into issues with that. So I think if you're going to run into potential issues like that, it might be best to find hosting on the cloud, or maybe rent a VPS so you can have more control over your application. Determining which is the best for you could be a little tricky. I think it could be cheaper if you get your own server and you configure it the way that you want it or need it to be configured if you are savvy enough or have enough experience. It could be a bit more expensive and, in my opinion, more scalable if you go with one of the big cloud providers like Azure or Amazon. And doing a quick AI search, this is what Scrinto comes up with, which is very similar to what I just said. A virtual private server, a VPS, is ideal if you need to have more control over the environment where you are going to be hosting your application. And there are different sizes that you can pay for. Obviously, the more you pay, the more resources your server is going to have. And if you choose one of the cloud hosting services, one of the main advantages is that they have many services available, and most of them are very easy to scale. The next thing, and another important thing, is payment processing. You need to be able to collect a subscription from your customers. Here are three of the most popular ones, and I listed them in the order that I would pick them. I have used Stripe before, and it has worked very well for me, especially when it comes to subscriptions. And they also make it very easy for you to move your money, and it is secure. Not that PayPal and ChargeBee are not secured, but I had the most experience with Stripe. And like the saying goes, it's like, why fix it if it ain't broken, right? But let's do a little bit more digging and see what the differences are between these three services. So this is something I forgot to point out about Stripe. It is developer friendly. They have great documentation, and it's very easy for you to implement it or incorporate it into your application. Like I also mentioned, it's very good for subscription-based applications or services. PayPal and Braintree are more widespread. They probably have a bigger footprint, maybe more countries where you could use it. And ChargeBee specializes in subscription management, which maybe that's the main thing that you might want to focus on. But this gives you a good starting point and the different features that you could expect from these three services. But if you would have me pick, I would just go with Stripe. I want to take a moment to thank the sponsor of this video, Scrintle. Scrintle is a tool that I have been using to lay out the ideas and the components that you might need for your SaaS. Besides the UI being so intuitive and easy to use, you don't have to leave the application so you can consult AI on any questions that you might have, like you saw me doing before. I would leave a link in the description that you can use to go get a trial and get a discount if you want to subscribe. Let's go to the next component. If you have subscribed to a service, you will notice that as soon as you do, you are going to be getting a welcome email. And then maybe a day or two after you signed up, you might get a friendly reminder to log back on, or maybe an email with important information about your subscriptions or things that are going on in the application. But this is something that new developers often forget, that it does take some work for you to be able to send out notifications. You can build out your own, or you can go and get services to be able to do that. I'm a big proponent of trying to get away with not building anything from scratch, and instead of that, leverage existing services. Even if you have to pay a small amount at the beginning, although most of the time some of these services are free. You have to remember that the main thing you need to focus on is launching your application, get it in front of your potential users as quickly as you can. So the best thing to do is to leverage existing services. One of the most popular services for sending text messages is Twilio. It has been around for many years. Over the years, they have compiled and they have iterated over their documentation. So it's very easy for you to get up and running and start sending text messages. Over the years, Twilio has grown and they acquired SendGrid. SendGrid used to be a standalone service used for sending transactional emails that you can trigger from your application when an event happens that requires a notification to be sent out. I have not used SendGrid on my personal projects, but I have used it at work on multiple projects. The service that I have used in my personal projects is MailJet, and I can share with you that it's very easy for you to get started with MailJet. They do transactional emails, and they also do campaign emailing if you need to. One of the cool things that I like about their service is that in their UI, you can design the templates that you might want to use for all the different types of emails that you want to send out. And all you have to do is code to fill in the blanks. There are many other services out there, and if I misspoke on any of the features, please let me know in the comments below. But at the end of the day, you will have to do your own research and find out which is the best service for your application. The next thing that I want to talk to you about is very important. Again, it's something that gets overlooked. Sometimes when we are developing new applications, we don't think about setting ourselves ways for us to be able to support your users better. Sometimes when the application is running in production, you don't have visibility as to what might have happened when your application went down. New Relic has saved me quite a few times, not just to troubleshoot, and it also helps me find ways to improve the performance of my application. Once you set it up on the UI, you could easily tell what endpoints are taking longer to process requests when comparing to the rest of the endpoints on your application. Although New Relic has saved me many times, I personally prefer to use App Insights when I'm developing my personal projects. Again, I don't want to get too much into details as to the features of each of the products, because that could potentially make this video an hour long. And the next one is authentication. It's probably the most important one out of the whole list that I have talked about before. You need to know who is logged into your application. There are many things that are based on the user's identity, the status of their subscription, the resources they might have access to, notifications that need to be sent and where they need to be sent, or simply just to make sure that they do have an account and that they have access to your app. Again, on this component, I follow the same philosophy. Don't build it, especially when it comes to authentication. There's a big risk that you could be taking if you try to roll your own. Don't even try. I would really suggest you go and sign up for one of the services that are out there. My favorite, Auth0. I've been using it for many years, and the best thing that they have is that you can start free. You don't even have to provide a credit card for you to be able to get started and launch your first SaaS. Their documentation is very good. Regardless of the platform or tech that you are using to build your application, they probably have documentation for it. The other service that is very popular and many of you have probably heard about is Firebase. Very easy to use, but it could become expensive if you don't watch out. At least that's what I've heard. And also, I do want to ask you a favor. I know that there are many other services that could be used for authentication that I just couldn't think of when I was coming up with this list, so I would really appreciate it if you leave them down in the comments. You won't necessarily have to use all of the things that I mentioned, but those are the potential things that you could start implementing. One of the things that I suggest is that when you start with the smallest number of components that you need to be able to launch your application. Don't try to over-engineer it and try to solve for every potential problem out there. The most important thing is that you get it into the hands of your potential users and start gathering feedback from what they think about the product. One of the more costly mistakes that I've ever done was that I didn't start marketing or talking about the product I was building until it was ready to be launched. It's too late. You need to start marketing your product the moment that you start building it, because you could get potential feedback from users that could help you pivot or change the implementation of your product to better serve their needs. Once you have your proof of concept, the bare minimum functionality that you are targeting, go ahead and put a paywall in front of it and start giving it to people to use. Another thing that engineers worry about too much and they end up not even launching because they overthink it is how much are you going to charge for your subscription? How much are you going to charge for your service? Come up with something that you think it's fair and the market is going to dictate how much you can charge. Just because you price your service at $10 a month, it doesn't mean that it has to stay at $10 a month for the rest of the life of the product. You could change the price of the subscription. One good example of that is Netflix. When it first came out, it didn't cost this much. So you can do the same thing if you are providing value to your users. If you found this video useful, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you get notified when I post a new video. Thank you and catch you in the next one. No, I did say it. I did say that if I didn't get everything right to let me know down in the comments. I didn't? No, I did. I did, I'm sure. Oh, but if you're still here, if I missed anything, please let me know.